Hi guys, it's Mama Doe Dawn, and today I wanted to make a video about a question that a lot of pregnant and expecting moms have, and that is, what are contractions like? Now, everyone will tell you that every single birth is different, every mom's experience is different, everyone goes through contractions a different way, so I'm just going to tell you my experience with contractions. I also apologize. I am very tired today. I'm having a mom is worn out day today, so I may seem very tired and groggy. I'm trying to get these videos out this week for you guys, so I do feel a little lackadaisical today. My contractions started out as just very mild stomach cramps. They're very similar to period cramps. It felt like maybe you had to go to the bathroom really bad. And I would have these cramps for about a week before I actually even started labor. My water was leaking for about a week, and during that time I was having very, very mild contractions. But I had had stomach cramps throughout the entire last 2 months of my pregnancy, so this wasn't an unusual symptom to me, and my OBGYN didn't really worry about the fact that I was leaking fluid. She should have done more tests, but that's beside the point. So the cramps started out as just like a very mild, achy feeling in my stomach. It wasn't even coming in waves or anything. It just felt like this dull, achy, crampy feeling that's very similar to what I got during my period. Now, shortly after my water broke, so my contractions kind of started at that point in time, they still weren't bad. I still wasn't like feeling contractions intensely. I just had that achy feeling in my stomach. I got a kiddo over there making noise. Are you making noise? Yes, you are. So the contractions started intensifying at that point, but I still just felt that same dull, achy feeling. And as they intensified, I got pretty bad diarrhea. So my system was cleared out and ready to give birth. But that was a sign. If your water did not break, but you have like that dull, achy feeling and then you're having diarrhea, it might be your contractions intensifying, and that's actually going to help clear out your system, your digestive system. So like I said, they were very mild to start, and then they just slowly increased. Wasn't anything dramatic, and honestly, if I was at home, it would have taken me quite a while to decide that I must be in labor and to go into the hospital. Because even as they got more intense, it just felt the same in the fact that it felt like period cramps. It felt no more than I had ever felt on my period. Granted, I've always had pretty intense periods, and my period cramps sometimes have me like truly stuck on the couch or the bed with a heat pad. I can't move, I'm sweating, I'm breathing through the contractions, which is what they are when you're on your period. And for me, it was about the same as labor, my period cramps, at this point, early on in the labor. So at about 4 centimeters, it felt like pretty intense period cramps. Not the worst I'd ever felt in my life, but pretty bad. So at this point, when they were increasing, I started to notice the pattern. I started to notice my body tightening and getting that really crampy feeling and then kind of releasing. I wasn't like checking to make sure it was regular or anything because I was already at the hospital by this point because my water had broken and I had went in. But I noticed that they were cramping up in my stomach and then releasing. As time went on and the cramps began to intensify, they got worse, and around 5 centimeters, they got as bad as my period cramps. And they were tightening in my stomach, and then it was going around to my back and down into my inner thighs. And it would tighten that entire area, just really be uncomfortable, not like unbearable, but very, very uncomfortable, and then it would release. By 6 or 7 centimeters, I went into an emergency C-section at 7 centimeters, so I didn't get beyond that point. But by 6 or 7 centimeters, they were getting to the unbearable point. They were very, very intense at that point, and part of that was I was not allowed to move around. I had tried being on all fours rocking, and they couldn't monitor my daughter's heartbeat that way, so I was forced to stay on my side, which made it virtually impossible for me to get through contractions, because as I was laying still, I could not rock. It really took a lot for me to concentrate on breathing, and I just couldn't do it just staying still. Had I been able to move around, squat, bounce on a ball or walk around or be on all fours rocking, I really think that I could have gone through the entire labor naturally without any kind of intervention. But on my side, I did end up having an epidural because it was truly unbearable staying on my side. And at that point, when I was having a contraction, it would start in my stomach, but it would radiate up very quickly into, like, all the way into my chest, down to my knees. It was the entire midsection of my body just in this very intense cramping pain where everything just hurt. Like, you could tell it was just cramping up. It was a contraction of the muscles, and it was pretty painful at that point. This was beyond period cramps at that time, but the feeling was the same. It was just like a more intensified period cramp. It never felt anything different than a period cramp to me. It was just a much more intense period cramp. So I went into labor at 6 o'clock at night, and I would have my child at 3 o'clock in the morning. I would leave for the C-section around 2 o'clock in the morning. So I would labor for quite some time, and I fell asleep between contractions pretty much every single time, up until about the last half hour of having contractions. So I could fall asleep, they were rough, but I could fall asleep between them and wake back up to deal with them. So it was, you were getting 5 minutes of sleep at a time, but that definitely helped me. And I was in a dark, quiet room, which really helped me honestly just pass out and then come back to when I needed to deal with a contraction. And then at 7 centimeters, like I mentioned, I did go in for my emergency C-section, and I've already posted my emergency C-section story if you're interested in seeing that. But this was my experience with contractions, what they were like for me. And honestly, after contractions, period cramps just don't feel quite as intense. They're still pretty rough, they're very uncomfortable, but after that 6 to 7 centimeter area of contractions, I'm like, you know what, I can handle period cramps, because contractions were rough. They were hard. I was not dealing with those very gracefully. But overall, yeah, that was my experience, and I hope if you are a new expecting mom that these maybe answered some of your questions about contractions for you. And if you have any more questions about labor or delivery or my experience with contractions, I'd be more than happy to answer them below. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.